Howdy, everybody. Um, First, obviously, thank you, Danielle. Yeah, we were on an ASU photo shoot, and she came to me and she said, I want you to talk for us someday. We have these topics coming up. And I said, hey, I have really one thing I'd love to talk about. How's it fit in? And she said, well, do the one at the beginning of the design week. It will reach the most people. So here I am. Also, really quick thank you, whoever brought the champagne. I love you guys. No, transparency to me was honesty. It was making today worth it for everybody who came up and not just giving you guys a portfolio show where I show you a bunch of images I took and tell you how great the photo shoots were. It's definitely one of those things that today's topic has the ability to kind of go from 0 to oh shit in no seconds flat. It is the most important part of my career, more than any award or photo shoot campaign or dollar figure you can put to it. The most important thing to me. Not that. Actually, don't even use an iPhone. Oh, sorry. BlackBerry for the win. No. Today's topic. Oh, fuck, right? So, mental health. It's something that if we had gone ahead and just put, I'm going to be talking about mental health on the website, I don't know how many people really show up because, fuck, it's not fun. But it is important, and especially in the creative world. It's extremely important. There's a lot of taboo that kind of goes on with it. Usually you'll get a speaker that comes up here and they'll say, I know somebody who suffers through mental health, or you all know somebody who struggled through mental health, but that's kind of what the problem is. We often separate ourselves and distance ourselves from it. So we'll get it out of the way. That sexy asshole goes through mental health struggles. I've had it for the last few years, panic attacks, and it's definitely been a world-changing kind of thing for me. Is extremely impacted my photography. A lot of people kind of view my web presence in the way that my publicists and my agents would want you to see it, which is like, hey, there's this crazy kid that photographs celebrities for all these campaigns and flies in fighter jets on the spare time. It's a really sexy, incredible view, but it's not real. That's just a part of me. I'm lucky to do the photo shoots, and I'm lucky to have the experience that I've had. But equally as important to me is having other people know that the same guy who is standing behind the camera for whatever celebrity this week is also the guy who has been curled up in a ball at the corner of my bed, crying, trying to figure out why my mind was telling me that I was going to die. So it's, again, transparency, it's honesty. It's telling you guys that while it's not the easiest thing to talk about, it's important, because out of all the creatives I've met on all the photo shoots I've done, I've talked about it pretty heavily in the last 2 years. And I've not had a photo shoot yet where I haven't known somebody that's going through somewhat of the same thing. I guarantee you right now, there's someone out there in the audience. I don't know who you are, but you're going through it right now. You've gone through it, and more important than anything in this speech today is you're not alone. I go through it too, and that makes us family. So kind of an exercise I want to put together to give you guys an idea. And have everybody close their eyes. This is really going to be fun. Everybody close your eyes real fast. I want you to picture yourself like, let's go with in a castle at the top of a hill. It's dark out. Some moonlight or something like that. Maybe some trees or something like that. Cool. We've just done that. Open your eyes. Yeah, really quickly, even though I just gave you a vague description, you were able to say, some of you probably saw like stones, or textures on stones, or you saw maybe some kind of birds, or you heard the wind, or you saw that the moonlight was a little bit yellow. That's because you're creative. It's because you have the ability to create an environment that doesn't exist unless you've been standing in castles on top of mountains lately. It doesn't exist. It's not real, but it was real in your mind for a second. That's what, for me, what panic attacks are. It's the time when your mind flips, and everything that your mind can do creatively and create these incredible, like for example with photo shoots, you're planning out lighting, you're planning out environment, you're trying to figure out what the subjects are going to look like, you're looking at angle of acceptance to the lens. All these things have to factor in for me to get the details right on set. That ability is the exact same ability that it takes for my mind to create, you know, this world that is scary, and sometimes that happens. So I'm kind of here today to say this is the behind the scenes of the behind the scenes. I'm going to talk about 4 photo shoots that all had issues associated with them, how I got through them, and a couple things that kind of associates to everybody, and then we'll do some questions after that. So, first photo shoot. Okay, it's Dodgers, but go Cubs. Sorry. I got called to do the photo shoot for Muscle Milk. It's this campaign that it's kind of right up my wheelhouse. Bringing a bunch of celebrity or athletes into studios and photographing them doing these crazy outrageous maneuvers. It sounds really, really complicated, but after a while it becomes mundane. It wasn't really stressful to shoot. So we have 3 days shooting at Loft 19, and we fly in. This guy's, God dang, Clayton Kershaw. I don't know what I have to guess. This is Stephen Curry, and this is Clay Matthews, who's an asshole. But so we are doing a shoot that I've done these kind of things before. There's pressure because you're bringing in a lot of big names, and you have to have a lot of producers, and everyone's kind of a lot of cooks in the kitchen. I only compounded my stress level because my wife and I were buying our second house, and we were leaving the country 4 days after we wrapped set, and I was going to have to trust that my retoucher and then my producer and one of my assistants can handle the file management for me while I'm pretty much out of phone range. The shoot went fine. We got good images, I guess, and everything was good. I didn't have any issues. About a day after the shoot, I am in bed. My wife was at work, and I can't even get out of the bed. I was gripped with fear of anything I did was I was going to die. I was scared to walk into my kitchen because I was worried I would fall on the knives. We were going on this cruise that was, like I mentioned, a few days later, and I was scared to even go on the cruise. I almost canceled the whole vacation because I was worried I was going to fall overboard and drown in the sea. Like, we're talking, reality has so far distanced itself from what's going on in my head. But the problem is what was going on in my head was equally as important, because it's not like it was it's not like you can just calm down or stop thinking that. With a panic attack or anxiety disorders, it's everything to you. It's just as real as you guys sitting here and me standing here. So about a day later, things kind of went away. I guess it scared me still, but the dark kind of stuff subsided. I went on the cruise. I had a great time. Really quick note, and this is not really the best thing to say, but if you go on a cruise, buy the alcohol package up front, because not a good encourage you heard, but it's really a good idea. Nonetheless, got through that panic attack. I got through that first episode I've ever experienced with a struggle with mental health. The problem was I suffered through it alone. I didn't even tell my wife to the extent of what was going on in my head, because you get scared of being viewed as crazy. Really quick aside on that, that word I can't stand now. I didn't really know how much I didn't like it until I kind of had the whole stuff going on, and now I just fuck crazy. it's dismissive, as I think Dave Chappelle, the comedian actually, who went through the same kind of stuff. The descriptor of crazy makes people that are going through mental health struggle or insecure, and it's not right. We're going through something that's actually quite normal. Millions and millions of people actually experience it every year, and in the creative industry, probably more percentage, or probably a higher percentage than the general populace. So I'm going to try not to use the word crazy, but I'm probably going to, so just bear with me. Oh, this is...
Oh boy. To add to further panic attack,
I photographed this guy the same day, and his name is Aaron Hernandez. And about 2 months after the photo shoot, I get a call from the client saying, you might want to consult a lawyer. Unfortunately, Aaron murdered somebody before he came to your studio that day. So, fuck him too. The next campaign. Cool Prince, O'Neill, thank you very much. This is, they put 2 of the same one up, so enjoy it twice. This is for a TV show called River Monsters. We were shooting it for the Discovery Channel. I kind of thrive on having hard shoots. I hate when someone says, hey Blair, we have a photo shoot for you. We're going to photograph these people standing, smiling in or in the studio, standard light. That can be done by anyone else. I don't want to do it because it doesn't challenge. This was the shoot that challenged. Weeks before, actually my assistant right here, Paul, is also one of my best friends. We were standing in his backyard watering the top of a hibachi grill to see how the water would bounce off the hibachi grill with the lights that we were going to use on the set and fly out to Florida that next week. So the practice, it was fun. We went to Florida. I closed down part of South Beach. We flew all the crew in, and it's high stress because you have a number of people, including celebrities in the water, with a lot of lights. But it was something I'm able to handle. However, driving to the studio or driving to the set that day, I always have an assistant drive me. And usually it's because I want to focus and I want to be kind of like shut down, and being on the road is not the easiest thing for me to just relax. I don't think anyone relaxes on the road nowadays. But I was in the passenger seat, and I got hit with a really bad panic attack. I was nauseous, I was fainting, and I played it off the entire time that I was putting my headphones in and that I was just going to take a nap. And so we, for about 20 minutes, driving from the hotel to the set, I literally stepped out of the car sweating profusely and wondering if I was going to be able to walk to set. However, step out of the car, the star of the show, his name is Jeremy, and my client, the creative director, were right there to meet us, and so it's game time. Everything went away. I stepped on set. No one ever knew it, what was going on 5 minutes before. We did the photo shoot, which went really well. I won ComArts for it, and I won Archive for it. But what was more important to me at that time was I learned I can kind of work through it, but I also still, again, didn't tell anyone because I didn't want even my best friend knowing that I was that I was unconscious in the seat next to him, freaking the hell out, going to a photo shoot that I should be able to handle. Side note on this photo shoot, if you want a little behind the scenes, we actually had to cancel, or we had to end the photo shoot a little early. We already had the shot, but we had issues with sharks. And Jeremy said to me while we were on set, I caught a bull shark here once, which is like the nasty kind of shark. And I said, when was that? And he said, last night. And so everyone moved inshore, and then and sure enough, we had wildlife issues. But it was a good shoot. It went well. Obviously, it turned out okay too. So then we get to this one. This is the big one, if you will. Nice photo too. I'm going to give you the short synopsis of it because it's a long story. And if we want to talk about it, I will definitely talk about it when we're not recording because there's a lot of issues. in short, I got called to, I was on set for another campaign, and I got called on a Tuesday and said, I need you to fly out to Beijing on Friday. And I was in Manhattan at the time. So I said, okay, take care of my itinerary, my travel, and all this kind of stuff to the client, and I'll be out there. Really, really long story short, the client didn't go through the right procedures to procure me a visa, and then when I got to China, proceeded to try and first offer me an insane amount of money, and then extort me. And I had to go back to the airport 5 hours later, only for them to pay off the police to try and hunt me down in the airport. And I ended up sitting on my luggage, hiding in the shower of the first class lounge for 2.5 hours. And I got on the plane and fled the country. And I got back to the US safely after having to take care of an asylum. So it was stressful. It was really, really stressful. I was only in the country for 5 hours. The flight there was 18 hours. The flight back was 18 hours, but 5 hours in the country. But I never freaked out. It was very, very calm. And that was kind of something that was surprising to me because I'm normally anxious and worried about doing these kind of things. But I didn't have any issues. And then 2 weeks later, I got hit with the biggest one, the one I described earlier. I was driving down the street, going to, I think, go shopping with my wife or something like that. And all of a sudden, I mean, we're talking, it was a 72-hour long panic attack that was 72 hours of constantly thinking you're going to die. And it's not like, oh, I worry if I go driving on the 101 today, it's pretty rough. We're talking, begins usually with you think you're having a heart attack. And the crazy thing is your mind has the power to do it. So your mind says, okay, heart attack. Everyone says, what happens to a heart attack? Your left arm. Okay, my left arm went numb. The left side of my face went numb. My chest gets tight. Everything that tells you heart attack. And this is actually usually the first thing that someone who has a panic attack, the first time they encounter it, this is what they encounter. For me, that only proceeded into, like I'd said, curled up in the corner of a bed crying and being sick. And this was the most important part of my physical and mental health life because
I told my wife.
I told her I wanted her to take me to the hospital, and it was Saturday, and so she said, let's wait till Monday. I told her the severity of it, and I called the psychologist, and I got an appointment. Greatest thing I've ever done. But telling somebody made the time from them completely different. My life got better. It still had a big impact because I didn't drink alcohol or caffeine for 3 months, and I do like alcohol and caffeine. But I just stopped everything on a whim and just said, let me figure out what I am and who I am. And so what I found is this was the photo shoot that started me, or well, the photo shoot that wasn't, but this is what started me becoming who I am and what I photograph now. From there, actually, I'll just go with this psychologist thing real fast. What was kind of cool was I started meeting with somebody who told me, okay, panic attacks, everyone has them, a lot of people have them. Here's what's going on. I got educated on what happens during a panic attack or general anxiety issues. And then from there, once I became able to handle that, we started to say, how can I make this applied towards my photos? How can I make me work better? For a photographer, one of my biggest, I guess, talents or whatever you would call these things is details. I sweat them really well. I know everything going on the set, and going in, there's no room for error. I'm not a stickler on set. I'm usually actually really easygoing. Say it. Okay. Yeah, I'll buy you lunch. But no, I like to have everything planned out to the T. All those details are wrapped up in a bow because my job is only to get the client this photo. I don't walk off set without getting that. But the more I put in beforehand and the more I stress those things beforehand, the more I'm relaxed on set. And that actually makes for an environment where you shoot a little bit better. So start me with him, things going well. Then we get to a photo shoot that I'm shooting for EAS, which the irony of this whole thing is Muscle Milk and EAS are competitors. So if you don't want panic attacks, don't shoot sports drinks. Sorry, I brought the whole bottle. EAS was a very complex campaign. 32 shots, 18 locations, 21 talent in 3 days. It was a nightmare, but we were planned. We knew exactly what was going on. We knew what we needed to do to get it. We got the shots. And the funny thing is day 3, I had front-loaded this campaign to be very difficult in the front because I knew by day 3 I'd be wiped out and just feeling like hell, but it is what it is. Day 1 and 2, awesome. Great campaign. Wake up in the morning, driving down the 101 to the set. We were shooting in South Phoenix that day, and it's kind of like playing with the house's money. You've already won. The shoot's pretty much over. You just have to shoot a couple photos this day, and you're done. And out of the blue, I'm going from driving, listening, and probably singing to some obnoxious music to, sick, fainty, which is not what you want to be when you're driving. And I end up having to pull over and park my car in the Phoenix Zoo parking lot. But at this time and at this point, from the experience that I had and talks with the counselor, I always had a backup plan. And that day was I was going to call one of the models who was a good friend of mine. And if something happened, I was going to trust in him to kind of help me out through it. So I called him and I said, hey, I'm stuck in the zoo parking lot. I can't drive this one, having a panic attack, and I need you to come pick me up and drive my car because my cameras aren't in it. And so he was cool. He showed up. We went from the zoo parking lot to a Starbucks real fast. I ran in, did not buy a coffee, and just went to the bathroom and splashed my face with water because when you're already climbing, I guess that helps. I have no idea. It didn't help worth all. But took a Xanax and went to the set. And when I went to set, I walked up to my producer, told him, hey, here's what's going on. Was completely open about it, and told him, hey, I want you to put all of my hardest photos, the most complex ones, in the very beginning of the day, because I want to be challenged right away. I want to have my mind not be able to think about whatever the hell's going on and only think about what am I going to do with lighting, how am I going to do with subjects, and what kind of complexities can I actually dive into, because I want to be challenged right now. I want the distraction, but I also want something to focus on. So we got this shot. It was actually really cool. It's this guy riding a bike. And then him in the water. But it was kind of a crowning achievement, because what I found that day was I can actually put this to work for me. I told some people, the people that needed to know, and all of a sudden I was able to deliver the campaign that I still needed to. And what's kind of cool about it was 5 or 6 months later, I wrote a blog about it, and I got a call from the client immediately. And he said, I never knew it. I had no idea what was going on. You did well. We didn't think anything else of it. We never knew what was going on in your head. And it was kind of a testament of sometimes you can be talking to a person and you have no idea what's existing in their head that time. With this one, it was definitely that. The crazy thing also was I used crazy again. The other thing was I wrote a blog about mental health and wanted to get it out there, and to tell you how prevalent it is. Within the first hour, I got 3,500 emails. Within the first week and a half, I had 18,000 emails. 7 million people viewed it in the first day, because it's something that's going on, and maybe they don't necessarily want to tell somebody else or talk about it, but they can see it, they can see something else is going on, and it help them hopefully to understand they're not alone in that. So from there, a couple things before we get too wrapped on this. I kind of want to talk to you about what can you do, because it's no use for me to talk to you about panic attacks for a bunch of time and then not tell you anything you can do about it. First and foremost, I didn't know how to do the bullet points, so they're just all there. Talk about it. You don't have to give a speech to people. You just have to have one person. I don't care if it's like a person in a cubicle next to you, or it's your friend or the person you walk the dog with. It doesn't matter. Or wife, spouse, that kind of thing too. Talk about it. It is the very, very most important part of all. And this actually doesn't even just address panic attacks. In general, anxiety kind of stuff. There's three big ones. Panic attacks, which is you're fearing for your life. You're constantly fight or flight, but you're flying like crazy, but there's no threat. Then there's depression. And that is, it's both physical and mental. Your body is depressed, slow, sluggish. The difference between the two is often depression is the one where you see people that want to do things. Let's just get it clear. Suicide and depression are pretty heavy. We've lost really, really good artists because of this. The space of mind that it takes to be creative, usually like a lot of authors, the space of mind that it takes to create the dark parts often is found within the times that they've gone through. The third one is bipolar, which is kind of a combination, the combo platter, if you will. That's high highs, low lows. A lot of comedians, because they're usually witty, because they're quick, and then the time drops and all of a sudden things go south quickly, and the depressive part gets really terrible. I know 3 very close friends that are photographers that have that, and that's equally as a scary one, because again, that's another one that can have suicide associated with it. And so again, the first thing, going through any of these things, or just going through a day when your mind just doesn't feel quite right, tell somebody about it. It's kind of embarrassing that we're at a time when we can go and guys can talk to each other about how they went to the gym and their biceps hurt, but they're scared to say, hey, my mind's not doing right today. So that to me, I mean, I don't get it. I know it's uncomfortable to be so open about things, but at the same time, your mind is just as important a muscle of any of the muscles in your body. Second one, if you are going through something, consult a medical professional. It's not weak. And let me get that really clear real fast too. Mental health struggles aren't weakness. Not at all. It's a factor of anything from, we don't know, genetics, external influences. But talk to a medical professional, whether it's a psychologist, a personal care provider. Tell them what's going on, because there's no use going through this one thinking you're unique in the sense of, oh my gosh, I'm the only one that's ever experienced this. But there's also no use going through it and thinking there's no help, because one of the hardest parts of panic attacks, depression, bipolar is the dread, and you really learn what the word dread means. You truly do. But the dread that you are going to experience this for the rest of your life. That's the hardest part to get through, but oftentimes, one, it's not true because it's heavily treatable stuff. And 2, you are viewing everything for your outlying the rest of your life based off of this one 72-hour period. It's not true. So talk to a medical professional. Diet and exercise. God, I'm like really hypocritical, and I'm saying this right now because first things first, alcohol, caffeine, cut them out. But I like to drink. So alcohol, caffeine. How many people are in advertising besides me? Okay. We know the life. We know it very, very well. We're in the careers that people are like, damn it, I wish I was in that. Because Usually it's a fun night with however many, for me it's old fashions, or champagne too, I like it. And then you wake up the next morning, you are dragging, but you needed to create something, so you're like, let's just throw a few cups of coffee on this one. What you're doing is you're kind of creating already this unsteady chemical balance in your body. And it is what feeds, it's the fuel to anxiety issues. And so that's why when I'm on set, and I've talked to somebody about it, usually creative directors, art directors, they know exactly what I'm talking about already, because it is that kind of cycle that we get into, not to mention overwork to the hilt, that starts to feed the ability to really stabilize and find any kind of equilibrium. And that's where it starts. The last little thing, if you do go to the medical professional and you get meds, again, it is not giving in or weakness. I had just talked to somebody last week who went through it, associated with a photo shoot, and they got a prescription for Xanax. And they said that they were scared to take medications because they thought it was weak and that only crazy people took medications. And I was just like banging my head on the wall. It's not. So if that is the situation that confronts you, there's nothing wrong with it. Just know that if you went to the doctor and you have a cold and you have some kind of need for antibiotics, you're going to take the pills, usually. There's no reason why if you go to the doctor and you have something going on in your head, you shouldn't take the same stuff, or the stuff that's going to help you. So the idea of today's talk was kind of a situation where I had wondered, how do I make something that kind of goes on with not only what I'm talking about, but we're going into Phoenix Design Week. We're going into a time when you guys are going to have a lot of get-togethers with everybody else. How do we make it comfortable to talk about? Because, well, at least standing up here, I'll tell you right now, it's fucking uncomfortable, but it's important. So I got this idea. I was sitting at lunch with the creative director at one of the agencies in town, and he and I both go through the same thing, panic attacks. And he said, Blair, the next time you go through a really tough one, I want you to do a photo shoot, which isn't always the easiest thing to just like, hey, everybody, I'm freaking the fuck out. Let's get everyone together at the studio and we'll take some pictures. So we got lucky, though, because I was already shooting another campaign. And so what I did was I asked for about 10 minutes with one of the models alone. And I shot some images while I was in a really heavy grab of it. I was going to originally just release the images as they were and say, okay, here's what it represents. Here's our Project Panic Attack that we had called it at the time. But I remembered when I put up the blog and I had all those emails. So 3,500 emails, I read through every single one of them. And crazy how many come from Italy, by the way. I don't know why. But I read through all the emails, and one of the emails that stuck with me was an artist, a retoucher, if you will, but more of a graphic design artist out of South Africa. And he wrote me this really, really sincere email. Said, hey, I'm going through the exact same thing. It's cool to feel not alone. And we kind of just exchanged emails periodically from time to time. And then I got the idea, what if I actually sent the photo that I had shot while I was having a panic attack to my retoucher and then said, hey, retouch it when you're having a panic attack. And it was what was kind of cool about that first was I didn't get anything, we talked, but I didn't get any photo for a couple months, which was something that made me happy because he's starting to get control of it. And now he's having a couple months in between it, and now he's not suffering as much. But one day I got an email from them that said, hey, I'm going through some stuff right now, but I wanted to talk to you about it, and I'm starting on the image. And so 3 days later, I got that. And it's hard to see, so I got a print. So that. It's really cool if you see it up close, so just come see when you're done. But what was cool about it was after I saw it the first time, I immediately I recognized what was going on in it. It was very true because you have, and it's hard to see because it's blown out here. You have this truth that is who you are, and it always is and always will be who you are. But reality is often fighting with what's being created in your head, and that's not necessarily what's real. And so it's this image that more or less conveys what he and I thought of, what we see, what a panic attack is. And so we called it Project Panic Attack. And what was cool with O'Neill guys over here, we printed out a bunch of small ones. Originally asked for my logo not to be on this, but I was originally going to have it just be the photo. You can cut it off if you want, I don't really mind. But you guys have Design Week coming up. You're going to talk to a bunch of people. Take that. Don't tell them who photographs it. I don't need any other kind of jobs or anything. All I want is have something that makes it comfortable for you to say, hey, I went and saw this guy talk, and here is a project that he did that's about panic attacks. Use it as the lukewarm entry to, have you ever had one? Maybe. You don't have to be that forceful, but make it a comfortable environment where we can talk to each other about this. And that really is why I wanted to talk about this today. And why actually the icebreaker was, how are you feeling? How are you doing, or something like that. The real question isn't necessarily something we always give the answer, because how are we feeling is objective. How are you feeling is only a matter of an answer of what you're willing to tell them. How are you feeling can be, hey, I'm doing okay, and then how are you feeling can be, hey, freaking the hell out right now. But equally, or they're both equally as important. Arizona has, Phoenix specifically has, a creative market that I enjoy more than anything else. I've been really lucky to work in everywhere from LA to New York, Beijing for that brief time, but back. We've done work across the globe in Paris too. There's no one else like us. It's cocky, but it's true. We are a family. Whereas I know that there's constant competitions and you want to see all the ad agencies, we're all the best and everything, that's great. But more than us being all the best is we are all family. And so today's whole speech was to challenge you guys. Make it open. If you have an ad agency or own one, or for the people I've talked to that do, make it something that's comfortable to be talked about in your agency, because I guarantee you have some young art director, or maybe even older creative directors, but you have someone that's fighting through it, and if you gave them the openness and the platform to talk about it, you're going to make not only their life better, but you'll make their creativity better too. There's no use for us to go through this alone, especially when we have the incredible family that stands around us and stands beside us. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm all there. Go for it.
I'm curious how you bring this conversation up with your closest team. Like, do you guys ever do workshops together or exercises together to kind of build a safe space that is your base? Yeah. So that when you go into these new collaborations with, other producers, people on set, like, are there some practices that you have kind of in your core team?
Mine is probably a little bit different than I would say to start with. I'm brutally open with it. My guys that are close to me know that I every once in a while have something, and I'll tell them. We've been lucky, actually. I've been about like half a year, if not more, without anything. But usually it happens going to set. Very rarely on set because you're already focused in. But I'll tell them flat out when I get to the studio today, hey guys, here's what's going on. The last really big one was I lost a pet the day before, and I showed up at set and I was just a wreck. And so I told them flat out, here's what's going on. with the clients and how that works on shoots, usually with the art directors, creative directors, I'll tell them because they're giving me the trust to do their campaign, which means more to me than just the money that's associated with it. It means to me that they appreciate what I've done in my art, and so I view that as reason enough that they should understand anything I can say to them and help them. And so I'm very honest with it on set. I'll tell them, here's what's going on. I'll tell them, or I'll talk to people usually about it. But like I said, so much of today's speech is actually stuff I've learned from other people too. One of my closest friends, another creative director of one of the agencies here, that castle exercise at the beginning was something that we had. He came to me and he said, hey, we were having wine, and he said his experiences with it and where he kind of viewed it coming from is we were sitting out at this nice patio, and he says, well, most people will sit here and say, this is what kind of wine we're having, this is how it tastes. He and I will take it in and say, this is what the thread stitching looks like on the cushion, and this is the pattern, and this is the reflectivity of the metal and the texture of it. And what we're doing is we're storing those later for our campaign, because you might have the idea where a client gives you some kind of crazy-ass envisionment, like, we want these people to be running down a mountain while juggling basketballs and having some kind of circus environment as well. And somehow, by every texture and experience and light that you've stored in your bank of creativity, you have to be able to say, that makes sense. And it's in no reality should that exist, but if it wasn't for the people who have the ability to say that exists, we wouldn't have creativity, we wouldn't have creatives, we wouldn't have advertising, in my opinion. Because advertising would be like, buy Coca-Cola, it's sugar. So it's again, going back to your question, it's just something that's very, very forward on set, because after going through it alone for those first few times, I don't want anyone that's there who has taken the time of the day to be with me to ever have to go through it. Anyone else while I drink? Danielle? Cool. Oh, sorry.
In account servicing, I'm from Montreal in Canada, so I don't know the music scene as well.
I was just in Montreal.
Did you like it?
You have really good food over there.
So I was going to ask, because in advertising, I know that in my past teams, it would be really valued to overwork in the drink.
Yep.
Always saying, like, I was sick last night, but I'm still here. To kind of always push the limit.
Yes.
And then at some point you can just work and kind of like moving on. And how do you feel jumping with that? Working in a place where almost people value that, overwork and pushing it, to the limit.
Yep. So that is advertising. We burn people out ruthless. Oh boy, what do I say without getting in trouble from the agencies I work with? The idea of that constant cycle is very true. A lot of good friends that I've known and that I do still keep in touch with, I have people that are sleeping at their desks and then coming and waking up the next morning in New York with the agencies that have showers there, that are 24/7 that job. You can't keep going that long. Your body's not meant to do it. Sleep is a big deal. Sleep is a really big deal as far as trying to keep any of your mental faculties. And then obviously the alcohol, caffeine, those are things too. But we see a lot of people that get into advertising that are hot shit, if you will, and then get burned out because how much nonstop stress and pressure to create. And okay, I have a deadline on this, and I have a deadline on this, and all of a sudden I can't go and have dinner. I'll just have like ramen noodles and just keep on going. I don't know how you combat it because we have to convince people, agencies, agency owners, that the general health, mental and physical, of their employees should matter just as much as the work you demand of them. I only can imagine what the quality of campaigns and the creativity of campaigns would exist if people were getting a good night's sleep in between them. I wish I had a better answer for it, but it's the burn that is the advertising industry is real, and it's Phoenix's market is even more lax than New York's market, because New York's market, everyone's replaceable. It doesn't matter if you're already a creative director. You need to work hard, or else your associate or art director below you is going to come up and try and take your spot, because titles matter for them. I wish I had something. Finding tricks is somehow figuring out a way to get sleep. The first thing that started with me was sleep deprivation, because I was, and I just actually got out of, let's just be completely honest, last week I just got out of a really bad panic attack on Wednesday. I had one through from Sunday to Wednesday. I was doing a photo shoot where I was in 18 different states and 2 countries in 6 weeks. And I had to be on a plane 26 times in 6 weeks too. It sucked. But we were constantly flying, doing a photo shoot, hopping back on a plane, flying, doing a photo shoot. And people think like there's little ways to kind of trick out of that. With this one, I had the client fly me first class, and okay, if I can unwind and have a meal and try and get my time clock on the same sync, it doesn't work. All it does is just it moves it back a little bit further. So I was able to get the campaign done, but as soon as I got home, all hell. So the nature of the beast is, I don't know if it's talking to the clients specifically who come with you demand and say, hey, we want 136 photos, we have 1 hour of work that we can pay for, let's see if we can do this now. I don't know if it's dialing in the reality to them, or if it's just saying we're going to commit hardcore to giving our employees the time to recuperate from a nonstop design creative, or even concepting. You don't think of it as much because you're just sitting there like, okay, let's think of this person doing this thing. But you're actually taxing your brain quite a bit because you're working hard thinking. You're constantly creating environments. It wears you out. There's no lightness about it. It's just as hard as in my opinion, doing connotations as an accountant. Thank God, I've never been an accountant. I never will be. But I believe it to be exact same level, if not harder. Sorry. More champagne. We good? There you go.